Hello, my name's Jeff McDonald and welcome to my workshop. What we're going to do this time is an urn, another urn. I've been working on urn, just a little tiny picture of an urn. It's walnut, black walnut, and the white maple wood is really a chunk of resin. What I did is I created a mold, this mold here, so I could pour these, okay? And goes into the urn. This is 8 inches across. Probably looks huge in that camera, right? But it's 8 inches across, 8 inches by 6 inches on the inside. It fits well into the urns or vases or things like that. I plan on making another one of these smaller for different projects, but because it worked out really well on making these. So that's what we're doing. Now, another thing I'm going to do is the cap for this urn is going to be made out of resin, the same colors. So I'm going to use this mold now, and we're going to pour that. Since I didn't show you on camera how I made that and how I poured it, we're going to do this one. Okay, it's the same principle. Resin's resin. Actually, how I do it, because not everyone does it exactly the same. I take some shortcuts. All right, let's get started. All right, I'm gonna show you step by step. So I'm gonna take my time and really show you how I do my resin. I use a urethane resin, which urethane resin you can put in a pressure pot, and it shrinks the bubbles. And instead of like tabletop resin, you get the bubbles out with heat. And the difference is tabletop resin takes a lot longer to dry. So you run the risk of getting, things floating in the air, getting into it. Where urethane resin will dry within an hour. It'll be tacky only about 30 minutes, 40 minutes later, and then it's hard. But it's in a pressure pot, so it keeps it safe. What I do is I start out by adding my color, my pigment, or whatever they call this stuff. I don't have my glasses on. This is cobalt blue though. And then I'm going to use this black. This is a liquid black, which I can get some out. There we go. And it's all over the place. Alright, so I start by putting part A in, or the actual urethane, clear urethane. This is what I use. This is the kind I use. It's Alumilite. I know you've probably heard of it. You get 12 minutes of work time. So what I got to do is, this thing's, let me slow down, 16 ounces is what it takes to fill this in. So it's 8 ounces each, but that means 4 ounces of urethane. So I put this on here. Let me zero it out. I just got to put 4 ounces in, fluid ounces. I'll pour it slow. And 4.1. Close enough. I'm getting sloppy. That's 4.2. But you know what I do is I even it out. So I'll put 4.2 of the hardener in next. Okay. What I do is I take my phone. Did I bring my phone? Yeah, I got my phone. And I set a timer on my phone so that I know how much time I have. A little timer here on my phone, and when it's time to go, I'll hit. The other thing I do is I keep an eye on this with the heat gun. Once the mixture hits 104, 105 degrees, then I can actually mix them without them mixing. What I mean is, If you just take a blue and a black resin and put them together, you're just going to have some god awful color, right? They're going to blend. But if you hit a certain temperature, they don't blend. So what it causes a swirling effect within the resin. So let me mix this up good. And then I'll mix it a lot more once I put the other in. Let me get this black all over the place. Okay. Now what we're going to do, put the hardener in. Oh, if I can, just going to start stirring these. And when I get time, we will pour them in. Now I'm not going to pour them in here. I'm going to pour them in at the hopper. Okay. I love this color. It's very mysterious color. It's black and blue. Alright, so what I do is I just keep checking it for the temperatures. Right now it's 87. 87. And this should be a pretty good day for it because it's pretty warm outside. If it's cold outside, you have to somehow keep the room warm. This room should be at least 75, 80 degrees for this to go better. Another thing is to heat up your mold. I didn't heat up my mold this time, but that helps too. Just anything you can do to make the process better. Okay, I'm just gonna pause, move the camera in place so you can see me pour. All right, so we're getting there. Temperature is getting there. Right at 104 right now. Go ahead and pour the blue in. Okay. Let's get black. All right, let me swirl it around a little bit. See, now you can see how you can manipulate it. Now that the temperature's right. Okay. What we do now is put our lid on and turn on the air. All right. Okay, now it's time to start cutting some wood. And what I wanted to show you is this. This is that, what I was describing is heavy. It's these big chunks of black walnut. Okay, I picked them up from a guy off of Facebook Marketplace. I was able to get 10 of them, so that's quite a bit of black walnut. And that's what I'm using to make this next project. I made a bowl out of it last week, and if you were able to see that, it's right now I'm cutting strips. So let me show you what I'm doing here with the strips. All right, here's my cut sheet. I know you're not going to really be able to see this very well, but it tells me how SCL, this is the segments, and every ring is going to have a certain size. The larger the segment, the bigger the ring, okay? So, I got to cut the width of it though. So, like this one is an inch wide, this one's a ½ inch wide, 3/4 inch wide, different sizes for each ring. So that's what I'm doing. I cut a couple of them already, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut some for you. I got my mic, so it might sound a little better. Back system turned on. What I do is I just mark it. This is 5. I also put a line on this side, and that tells me when I'm building the rings what to do with it. Okay, so I just keep cutting. Time to start cutting some segments, and before I get started, I wanted to go over a couple things. When you look on my cut sheet, okay, hopefully you can see this. This is SEL. Segmented edge length is what that stands for, and it's got a variety of numbers. Each ring has a different, it's going to get bigger, right, and smaller, depends on where it goes in the project. So I follow this cut sheet to cut the segments at these areas. When you look at a ring, as you can see, of course, this edge is wider than this edge. That's why we're going by this edge on the outside of the ring. The cut sheet has it 0.83. I already got it set up. All I do is I take my calipers and mark it on a board. Now, you know, everyone has their own way of doing this, right? This is how I like doing it. Now that I have this mark, I come over here, line it up with the blade. Of course on the outside of the blade, because I want the full width of that area. Then I use my stop here, and I reset my stop to match that. And so this is what I do on each segment, okay, or each ring. I'll change it for each ring. All right. So with that, we're going to get started cutting some rings, segments, making some rings, okay. And that was just a get started cut, okay. Now we start making segments. I always cut one. And I test it, make sure how close I am. It's a little tight, but that's okay. Okay? Alright, so we can just get started. Another thing I wanted to go over, see this black line on the wood? I keep that on top at all times, back and forth, back and forth. And I'll explain further what that line's all about at another time. So. All right, I'm gonna keep cutting. I'm gonna be cutting these segments most of the day because I have like 15 rings to make times 24 of these, so it's going to be a lot of cutting. And I'll come back when it's time to put those segments together. Sorry, put the rings together. Connect the segments and put the rings together. The rings, I'm going to start with number 2, which is actually the last actual segment ring. And the smallest one. So what I'll do is I always start with it in case I don't get them all built. I can still start building the bowl. Now let me show you something. Remember them marks I was telling you about, them little black marks? The reason for those black marks, and if you've been here before, you already know this, but I go every other one because in case the saw blade is not exactly 90 degrees, say it's off by half a degree or a degree, thank God it's not a degree. If it's off a degree, by the time you get around 24, you're going to be off a lot, right? The ring is not going to lay flat. So what this does is compensates for that. Every other one would work against each other or for each other, depends on how you look at it, and keeping the ring flat. Okay? So that's the whole idea behind the black mark. So now what I got to do is prepare this to glue. What I'd like to do is this. So when I put it over here, the mark's in the right place. I start by offsetting the marks over here. And then just kind of keep going, building it that way. Okay, just kind of smear around my finger. There's multiple ways to do this. This is how I like to do it. Some people like to put it in place and glue each one as they go. Some people like to, I don't know, different ways. But I found this the best for me, especially if I was putting a little piece in between. This is faster. All right, I'm gonna move the camera. Let's get you a better vantage point here. All right, now what I do is just start building the ring. Just like that, laying them down, shoving them together. And then when I'm done, I like to use, I used to use all rubber bands, but I've sometimes that's a hit or miss. So now I use steel bands to put these together. I hope my hands aren't in your way, but they have to be here. I know no other way to do it.
I've had a few people ask me where I get these straps from, or these bands. I get them off of Amazon. They're an adjustable band, and they're a lot quicker than your traditional band, so I highly recommend them.
I gotta go get my drill. I forgot to grab that. I try to have everything prepared, and I always forget something. I'm forgetting to hold it still. I forgot to do this. Of course, that's the reason for having this kind of system, and I'm not even using it. There we go. Now we can get it. All right, let's check it out. All right, there's our first ring, and then we'll just keep building them. So here's the rings all made now, the wood parts for the urn that we're about to build. Right now what we're going to do is run it through the drum sander. So let's set that up. Let's see, let's get this down. Now it's time to start building this bowl. I'm going to, this is the base plate here that I've already glued to this waste block, and I'm going to round it off, and then I'm going to start gluing, attaching the different rings on here as we build this vase, or I'm sorry, urn. Urn and vases are pretty much the same except how you finish it. With an urn you put a screw top on, and with the vase you leave open. But anyway, up a little bit, about 900. We'll begin by just gluing. Now, this first one I'm going to show you what I'm doing. After this, I'm just going to just be attaching them and all, not saying anything. If all fast forward, and it's kind of repetitive, right? Now, this is Titebond 3. I like using Titebond 3 for a couple reasons. One is it doesn't set up too fast, so it gives me time. It's forgiving that way. Another one, it's waterproof. So over time, say whoever's using this for this particular item, you're not going to be using with water, but say it's a bowl and they're putting salads in it, and over time water will start breaking down the other glues. So not so with this glue. I like putting it on both sides. I'm probably overdoing it, but I do not want any risk of coming up short on glue. I've seen that happen too many times.
One more thing I thought of while I was editing is that another thing I like about Titebond 3 is when it dries, you don't see glue lines anywhere in your project. It's almost invisible. So,
All right. Okay. going to turn the outside now. I'm going to go ahead and get it this far, this much of it turned on the outside. Alright, I already put the 2-part epoxy on here, and I just gotta get it on here quick, tighten this up. And bring it home. There we go. Nice and sweet. There we go. I've been screwing up with the camera this morning. I thought I had it on, and I went through this whole production on what I used and how I used it, and I showed on camera how I attached it. But this is what I've used, this 5-minute epoxy from Starbond. Works really well. I've never had any problems with it. I just put it on the section that goes onto the wood, and then I went ahead and sent it home. And I let this set up. It says 5 minutes, but I'll probably give it 30 or maybe even an hour, and then I'll come back and kind of turn, maybe even a little longer. But I got to turn away all this excess. I have lots of excess. Unfortunately, the mold I made one mold for one size fits all. That means I have to do a lot more removing. All right, so I've already put the 2-part epoxy on here. I didn't show it because I had to do it over there, and it has to be done very quickly. Oh, shit. Crap. Got it all over my hands. Come on, Jeff, get your act together. Here we go. Should be wearing gloves anyway, huh? There we go. Then we just lock it down. Now that should do fine. And now what I'll do is I'll turn this section here. And it rolls over, rounds over here. And then the last few, let's see how many more rings I got. 4 more rings, and plus part of that is going to be a lid after that too. So we're getting there. All right, I don't know how well you can hear me because I've got a filtered mask on, a hood on. It pumps fresh air into so I don't have to breathe this resin. But if you can hear me, I'm going to go ahead and turn the outside of this resin. It's going to take a while, so I don't know if I'll record all of it, but pretty much is doing this for the next hour. Alright, as you can see, I've got the blue resin turned down flat with the wood on the outside. I still got to turn the inside. It's still really thick on the inside. First I got to cut this wood here, so that's what I'm going to do. Alright, what I've done, I got ahead of myself. So I did the sanding. I got sanded it down to, well, the resin down to 2000. Okay. Now what I've done is I put a coat, Tasha, sorry about that, of this. This is Axe First Step. It's a tung oil. It's pure virgin tung oil. And I put that on it inside and out. And let me put a little more on the inside. What I do now is just let that kind of penetrate the wood for a few hours. Then I'll just wipe it all off good. And then we'll move on to the next step of using, okay, as you can tell, I took the main body of the urn off the lathe. I've got the top. This is the very top on the lathe. And I used 2-part epoxy. I glued this on. I'm using the tailstock to press it on. Now what I'm doing is sanding it to get it down to where I can polish it. Right now I think I'm at 600. Yeah, I'm at 600 grit. See, this don't record this all the time because this just takes forever. I'll go to 2000 grit on this before I start using the sanding paste. So. Alright, let me start working on this piece. saw because I'm a chicken. I don't want to ruin it. I'm surprised it's still on there. Tell you, nope, staying on there. How about that? Just had to pull on it a little bit. Alright, so I just got to clean this up. I can take it out to the sander and I'll just sand it flat and clean that up. And then I'll be back. Alright, so we just take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I usually end up mixing more than I really knew, but I don't like coming up short because it is a 5-minute work time. So all you're doing here is I'm trying to get equal amounts on the plate. I like using these plates. I'll eat lunch and then I'll just keep the plates for this. There's a little bit of remnants of lunch on here, but hey. All right, that looks about equal to me. Oh. Okay. Let's see. All right, get them mixed up good. I've not had any problems with this Starbond 5-minute 2-part epoxy. It's worked really well for me. I get it on Amazon. Of course, I get everything on Amazon. Okay, here's what I want to do. Messy, messy, Jeff. Should have put rubber gloves on. I always forget to do that. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I'll end up sanding that again, so what I'm going to do is set it here. And it'll be equal all the way around the bottom, so that's the idea, or the top. This is actually the top. But yeah, that should work really well. Okay. Okay, I started out going to set it up on the lathe, and then I ended up setting it up over here. This is much easier to control how it went on there. So it went on very nice this way. I'll leave it like this for a couple hours. I'm sorry I didn't record it while I was doing it, but I got caught up in the moment. So, well, as soon as this dries in a couple hours, or maybe half a day. All right, so I'm removing I started cutting it already, and I thought, oh crap, I'm supposed to record this. So all I gotta do is cut this some more to remove it from the Okay, I think I'm done. I've had these things break off before. There we go. And I'll sand that off, and it'll go on top of the urn, and then I'll be able to do the final polishing of the top. Okay? Piece by piece, we're getting there. Alright, so now I gotta trim some off right here. I wasn't sure the exact size, so when I screwed the top on, where's it at? When I screwed this top on, it showed that this is too thick right here, so I've got to work on that. Alright, so I just took Axe abrasive paste, always want to call it powder, put it all over this, and now I just gotta do this, and you know, for as long as I can stand to do it, I guess. And I start out fairly slow. I'm going about 500 RPM. And then I'll increase the speed as I go. My understanding with Axe paste is it's got a grit to it. If you feel that it's gritty, kind of like I don't know, a sanding paste you use on a car, and it just continues to polish and polish and sand. What you're doing is almost wet sanding, I guess. And you just keep going. I'm mainly doing this for the resin. I do the whole base with the whole urn. But the resin is really going to get a difference from this. I'm going for that glass look, right? So hopefully we can get it. Got to spend time at it, you know. All right, guys, I got it in pretty good shape. So what I'm going to do now is finish polishing the top. It needs this, and that's it. Everything's together. But I have to do it this way and keep it on there, okay? Don't want to get it too tight, but again. So that's all I'm going to do. Start out with about, I guess I could even start with an 80 grit. Might be a little heavy, but I'm going to work my way down up to 2000 grit. Well, I got to tell you, this is going to be a little, I don't like how it's on there, but it's the only way I know how to get it on here and hold it so that I can do the bottom. So pray for me. Of course, it'll be too late by the time you see this, but the thought counts. Okay, let me, I think I got it pretty balanced, so. Within reason, I'm balanced. Looks pretty good, actually. Other than needing sanded. Let me do that real quick. Okay. There we go. A little more sanding. All right, I'm all finished with it. And there it is. Nice little urn. There's the bottom that I was so terrified about. I like working with resin, and I don't like working with resin. This probably took at least 30 hours to do, and I would say half that time was getting this resin where it needed to be, and to get it all polished and get it like shiny and glass-like. So, but I like resin because you can do a lot with it, different colors, different projects. But all right, we got it. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Don't forget to ring the notification bell. Once you do that, you'll know when I have new videos come out. And I try to do them weekly, but I've slowed down about every 2 weeks right now, because these things take time to make. And anyway, with that, I want to say God bless. Have a great day.